Welcome everyone to the Prime Time Podcast, hosted here on the MVG Nick YouTube channel. My name is Nick, of course, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Prime Time Podcast here, the podcast that talks about all things in the world of TV, news, reviews, entertainment, all that good stuff. And I do want to start this episode by giving you guys a little bit of an apology that I didn't upload anything last week. I actually meant to have a different episode up the week prior, but due to just time constraints and general stuff like that, being busy, unfortunately wasn't able to get it out. However, on the contrary, I do have some good news about the podcast here. Recently, I've been doing these once a month, and I think starting with this one, episode 3, I'm going to try to do it bi-monthly from now on. So 2 a month. This, of course, will be the first one for August, and then we'll have one a little bit later in the later weeks of this month, coming up very soon. So with that in mind here, welcome once again to the show. If this is your first time joining us here, be sure to like and subscribe so we can get this video out to the people that want to hear us talk about all things TV, as well as my very, very special guests here. Like to introduce them to you now. The first episode that we are going to have guest hosts for the podcast here. Joining me via Zoom here, 2 gentlemen that you guys know very well if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time here. My brother Matt and my buddy Mike joining me today for the podcast. Welcome, guys. How are you guys doing this morning?
Annoyed with Zoom.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a technical. Yeah, but Mike, how about you? How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah, good to hear. So this is the first time that we are having a guest host on the podcast here, and I know we've been talking about this behind the scenes for a little while, trying to get you guys on the show here, but this is a bit of a different setup because obviously we're not together. We're doing this via Zoom, as well as the fact that the podcasts are a bit more conversational, they're a bit more relaxed compared to some of our other collabs, which are a bit more structured. So what was going through your mind and that any differences in terms of how you were feeling about today's shoot?
I was just hoping that Zoom would be working properly today.
Yeah.
So far it's been pretty good. I know Matt's had some issues so far, but we've been holding in there.
Yeah, we got a couple different things going. I got, of course, the main audio going with Zoom and then a backup going as well. So just in case we have any technical issues as well. But again, thanks for being here, guys. And with that, why don't we transition into the topic that we are going to be talking about today? This is actually a discussion that I wanted to do from the very first episode, but I felt like it was more appropriate to have guests for this because this is definitely a more conversational one that, creates some discussion and has some good debate to it as well. And I think I speak for all of us when we say that as TV YouTubers, sometimes it can be kind of annoying that we only get to talk about TV shows in a very, very small amount of time per video that we do it. If you're talking about the the collabs that we do, like the tournaments and stuff, 50 big shows that you have to talk about. Sometimes you don't always get the amount of time that you would want to dedicate to each show and go in depth and go in detail. So that's what this episode is for. We have a list of 10 different TV shows here that we 3 have collectively agreed that we all enjoy. These are all shows that we have seen quite a bit of and that we're very knowledgeable about, so we can go a little more in depth with our discussions on each of these topics here. And for each one, what we're going to be doing is giving you guys our favorite episode per show here. The 3 of us will compare each episode and talk about why we all enjoy it the way we do. And then in addition to that, we're also going to be taking a look at IMDb and seeing what the highest rated episode is on the website here and see if that matches with any of ours or how it differs from that, as well as give our thoughts on those episodes in question. So with that said, is there anything else that you guys would like to add before we officially get this thing underway?
No, I think we're good.
No? All right. Satisfied with that intro. Cool. All right. No particular order that we're going to be doing the shows in here, but we do have a nice variety, a few different styles that we've talked about previously. But why don't we kick it off with my all-time favorite TV show here. It wouldn't be an NVG Nick TV video without bringing up How I Met Your Mother, of course. I got the shirt on for today's occasion here as well. And with that, my favorite episode of the show, over 200 to pick from 9 seasons worth. So this was a tough choice because even though I do love this episode to death, I think that there are better ones in the sense that there are more story based episodes that are a little more important to the plot, that have some more, story details in them. But in my opinion, this is the funniest one. And at the end of the day, a sitcom is supposed to make you laugh. And of all the episodes, this one makes me laugh the hardest. And that is The Best Burger in New York. This is an episode from season 4. One of my favorites to showcase Marshall as a character, as well as Jason Segel as an actor. Probably my favorite performance he gives in the series here. And describing the plot of this one, it sounds simple when you kind of break it down, but there is some more kind of hidden details with it as you go through the episode. But essentially, the basic plot here is the gang is hanging out at McLaren's, as most episodes of Him Yum Startup, and they just got this new burger on the menu. So the waitress, Wendy, recommends it to the gang. And when they all try it, everyone loves it. Everyone thinks it's so great, except for Marshall here. He says it tastes like his grandpa's feet because he's had what he claims is the best burger in New York. And for the remainder of the episode, the gang travels all over the city trying to find where this restaurant is, where this elusive burger that Marshall has been searching for all these years is at. And eventually they do end up finding it, and Marshall is satisfied by the end of the episode. And while I said that sounds really simple, and it is a very simple concept, the hidden kind of meaning behind it is the other main story arc of the episode involves the introduction of GNB, which is a reoccurring theme in How I Met Your Mother, of course. Sorry, my cat is wanting to get in there. The other main sort of part of the episode is GMB, Goliath National Bank, where Barney works at in the show. And the struggles that Marshall has in trying to find a job kind of come to fruition here in this episode. And that's why he is just going crazy over this burger, because it doesn't seem like something that, your normal issue would have, like you would have a normal issue with this burger. It seems like a very trivial thing, but it's kind of played in the style that Marshall is kind of illustrating his frustrations with his unemployment and everything in this search for this burger. So I always appreciated how the episode was able to kind of illustrate that with this very silly, very over-the-top way that Marshall, goes through these frustrations. But I just always found this one to be very funny. And like I said, Jason Segel does a great job in this episode. Definitely my favorite of the series here. With that, I'm going to carry it over to Mike here to give his thoughts on his favorite. He's also a huge fan of How I Met Your Mother. So, Mike, take it away here. Your favorite episode of the show.
All right, so for this one, I actually am going to kind of give two, because I have one of them is one of the highest on IMDb, and then another one is just so great. I actually think it might be a funnier episode. So starting off here, we have Slap Bet, of course, a very iconic episode of the series. Basically, in this episode, we have Robin. She has a secret, and Ted's trying to figure out like what it is, and like everyone else in the group is trying to figure out what it is. And Marshall and Barney make a slap bet where so the loser gets to slap the other person in the face as hard as they can. Barney bets that Robin is an adult film star. Marshall believes that she had another marriage in Canada. So basically that's like the running joke all episode. And then you find out at the end, Barney like has a clip from it, and he thinks it's an adult film. And then you realize that it's actually Robin Sparkles is her as a pop star in Canada. So yeah, that is just a great addition. That is a very big running gag throughout the rest of the series, the slap bet and Robin Sparkles. So yeah, but yeah, another one that I wanted to give a mention here, because like I said, it was an IMDb top episode, is the Swarley episode. This is another season 2 episode, and this episode is just so funny to me. It starts off with Ted, Marshall, and Barney at the coffee shop, and they kind of make a diss at friends when they say hanging out at a bar is much better than hanging out at a coffee shop. And the waitress writes on Barney's cup "Swarly." So basically, the whole episode is basically them just calling him Swarly, and they get everyone in on it. Ted, Marshall, Lily, Robin, Carl, the bartender's even in on it, which is really great. And at the very
Bob
end of the
Swally.
episode,
We got a call from Bob Swally. I love that. I love that part.
Swirls Barkley is
Swirls Barkley, yep.
and then there's also one where where Ted gets a request on the radio for it as well. This one goes out to Swarly. And I love the very end of the episode when Barney walks into the bar. Carl puts on Swarly. They all say Swarly. And then the Cheers intro music starts playing as he walks out. Everyone knows your name. Just such a great episode. Just that running joke. It's not really a big running joke the rest of the series. It's mainly just that episode. But it's just so funny. A great classic episode from season 2.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I'm gonna pass it over to Matt here.
All right, so I am going to agree with Nick actually and go with Best Burger in New York.
Hey.
That was easily my favorite watching the show, like 5-6 years ago with Nick. I saw a handful of episodes and that was definitely the one I remember the most. And what he said, basically, it's amazing how, Marsh, the whole joke with he can't get a job, it kind of just ends in that episode. And Regis Philbin's cameo is just so fucking funny.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Where that part is just so funny. And the episode is, again, what Nick said, it's just kind of a one joke episode, but it really isn't. It really dives in deeper to the story and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and with that, we can transition to the IMDb top-rated episodes. So, as Mike pointed out, Slap Bet is one of them, but there's actually a second one tied for the top score of 9.5 out of 10. Would you guys like to guess what it is, or do you guys know what the other episode is?
I'll have Matt guess first, but I do know what it is.
All right, Matt, do you have any ideas?
Lucky Penny.
No, that is a great one, though, but unfortunately not the episode. Mike, you look like you're antsy, so go ahead.
Yeah,
give us the answer and give your thoughts on it.
How Your Mother Met Me. It's a season 9 episode from How I Met Your Mother. And of course, this is where we see Tracy over the course of the 9 years. In one episode, you get every event that's happened to her over the course of when the show started in 2005 with the gang. And you see her story, like with her relationships. Of course, you see the connections where they almost met in the earlier seasons. And it's just such a great episode that builds a lot on her character and shows more about her, which is really great because everyone would agree that the mother was a great addition. They picked the right person for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very briefly, I'll give some more thoughts on it. The thing that I always appreciated about these two being the top is they're very different stylistically from one another. Slap Bet is much more about the humor and much more about this gag of Robin Sparkles, as Michael mentioned. Just a really, really like over-the-top gag that they do, but really executed very well. And then How Your Mother Met Me, very much more grounded in the story and kind of building on the lore that is the mother of How I Met Your Mother there. And really just really well executed, really well crafted episode. Very, very carefully, constructed throughout the course of the entire series, building up to the last season there where we get the reveal of the mother, which I thought was done very, very well. So yeah, I definitely agree with both of these as the IMDb top picks. Before we wrap up, Matt, any last comments on either one of those episodes you'd like to add here?
Yeah, pretty much what you said about How Your Mother Met Me. It obviously feels important because it's, they finally meet the mother, obviously, and it's also one of the last ones, so it, kind of wraps up the story as a whole. And then Slap Bet is just iconic as how it's the most popular episode of the series, so that's obviously in there.
Definitely, definitely. All right, gentlemen. Great first discussion here on How I Met Your Mother. All right, transitioning to our next show, we're gonna take the style. Oh, what was that? Did you guys get a note somewhere?
Yeah.
Pros.
Yeah.
It says the meeting has been upgraded by the host and now includes unlimited minutes.
Oh.
It was like a thing it just said, but okay, whatever. Anyways, transitioning to our next show here, we're going to bounce to a different style, a different genre here, and talk about an animated show. And for this one, I'm going to have Matt introduce it here. This was formerly your favorite TV show of all time. I remember you talking about in one of our previous videos here, before Gravity Falls, of course, and one of Seth MacFarlane's most iconic cartoons. So, Matt, why don't you introduce it and talk about what your favorite episode is?
Yeah, is it Family Guy?
It sure is, yeah.
Yeah. So with Family Guy, there is so many episodes that you could have choose from. This is a little off topic, but last night I was watching that video by LS Mark, the watching every Simpsons episode, and then I was thinking like I should do that with Family Guy, just rank all the Family Guy episodes from best to worst, or from worst to best rather. But my all-time favorite definitely is season 12's He's Black. That's the one I've seen the most amount of times. It's just easily the most rewatchable one I've seen so far. And basically the plot of that one is Cleveland comes back to town after doing the Cleveland 4 years, and they start at the bar. They're like ripping on the show and everything. They're making jokes about it, and then basically Peter and Cleveland are hanging out again, and then when Donna basically, she has Chris over at the house, and then she slaps his ass after he breaks a vase basically, and then Lois and Donna get in a fight, and then they don't want to see each other again, and they restrict Peter and Cleveland from hanging out ever again, and then they have to find ways to hang out behind their backs basically, and at the end it all just finally comes together when they all go to Susie, Joe's baby. They go to her birthday party, and then the episode kind of ends there. And the episode is just hilarious. It's morally it's a pretty good one, and it's just a rewatchable episode.
Definitely. The thing that I've always loved about Family Guy, and something that's very clear in that episode, is like how much they reference themselves, the meta humor of Family Guy, and everything with the Cleveland show, and kind of making fun of that. I've always appreciated that. So, but with that,
Yeah.
Mike, would you like to go next here? Favorite Family Guy episode for you, sir?
Yes. So I'm definitely not as big of a watcher as Matt is. Matt is like a super fan, but I still really enjoy the show. I watch clips from it all the time, and for me, my favorite episode is The Boom. Very
Classic.
iconic in the earlier seasons. I love of course, the iconic fight with the chicken is just, I love that. And then I like the plot of it too. The New Year's Eve plot for it is just so great. I definitely need to rewatch that episode more recently, because I haven't seen it in a good minute, but that episode makes me laugh every time I see it. So yeah, Da Boom, great episode.
Definitely. Kind of ripping on Y2K with the whole sort of
Yeah.
plot with that one, for sure. So for me here, my favorite Family Guy episode, a little bit more on Matt's end of the spectrum there with the more recent seasons. This one coming from season 10 here. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, I love the meta humor of Family Guy. I love when they do the inside jokes and the fourth wall breaks and all that stuff. And I also love Stewie and Brian led episodes. And this is the perfect combination of all those elements thrown together. And that is back to the pilot here. That is going to be my pick for my favorite one here. Trying to describe the plot of this one is just an absolute mess. Like, there's just so much stuff that happens in this episode. It's really one of those that you just have to see to kind of understand. But very, very basically, Brian and Stewie travel back to the very first episode of the show, the day where the show began, January 31st, 1999. And while they're there in that sort of past universe, Brian mistakenly tells his former self about certain real world events that wouldn't happen until later, so that his former self can prevent these things, or can benefit in some way from knowing these things in the future. And of course, that messes up the timeline, and it causes a whole bunch of chaos that Stewie and Brian need to fix in order to resurrect how things were back to normal. And concludes with that iconic scene of all the Stewie and Brian timelines kind of forming together on the front yard. There's like 100 of them, and they're all arguing. That is just one of the funniest moments in the entire series for me. So if you love that like meta humor and the fourth wall breaks and everything like that, that is the perfect episode of Family Guy in my opinion there. So with that, the IMDb top rated pick, this one a 9.1 out of 10, very strong rating there. Matt, offhand, do you know what it is? I'm curious.
I have two guesses. I'm going to say either P-Tarded or Da Boom, because those are like the two most iconic episodes.
Those are great guesses, but neither are correct, actually. Those are not the number one episode. Mike, do you have any predictions?
I actually do. I'm a pretty big IMDb fanatic, looking at the episode ratings. Road to the Multiverse.
You are correct, sir. Road to the Multiverse there. So this one, of course, one of the iconic Road to episodes, another Brian and Stewie led sort of episode there, and another one that involves time travel in a lot of ways. The thing that's really cool about this one, at least for me, is all the different styles of animation that they kind of satire or parody or pay homage to in some way. One where it looks like a Disney movie, and one where it's anime, and one where it's Robot Chicken, and all these different sort of styles put together is really, really a cool thing that the animators put in this episode here. So I'll give you guys a chance to comment on it here.
I'll go first. Yeah, it's definitely probably second favorite Road to episode after Road to Germany. It's it's iconic. Obviously, the different universe they go to, the dog universe, and like I said, the Robot Chicken universe, Disney universe, the real life universe. Those are all classic scenes. The montage where they're just going from one universe to the other, and he's just like, one of them is like, love it, and the other one's like, hate it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, the gay universe, Stewie likes it, and then like the fire hydrant universe, Brian likes it, and Stewie doesn't, and then, the real life universe, and then neither of them like it. But yeah, the episode is just so great, so naturally it'd be the number one on IMDb.
Yep. And Mike, any closing thoughts for us here?
I just have to say I agree with a lot of what you guys had to say. I really like the animation of all the different universes, and all the universes they go through is just so funny and so great. Yeah. So yeah, that's just my closing thoughts. Pretty much everything that you guys said, hit it right on the head with that.
All right, very good there. So another good one here, Family Guy, of course, a super iconic animated show there. All right, going into show number 3 here, our first crack at a drama show on this one. And I'll go first on this because of the three of us, I'm the only person that hasn't seen through the entire show. So I'll make mine kind of short on this because I've only seen through the first season as well as a few episodes into season 2 here. It's a show that I've been watching recently because after our drama tournament, you guys convinced me that this is one that I definitely need to check out. It was one of our top scoring ones in that video, if you haven't seen it. And that is the Netflix hit 13 Reasons Why. So for me personally, I know that there's probably going to be at least a couple episodes in the later seasons that I'm going to enjoy in some way, but I don't personally think that any of them will top this one in particular of what I've seen so far, and that is going to be Tape 7 Side A, the Season 1 finale, otherwise known as. And I thought Season 1 of the show was fantastic. I thought that the whole sort of narrative of the show with Hannah and Clay and the tapes and everything was really well done. I love the actors on it. All the different side characters kind of getting their own episode to kind of fill in and flesh out their characters, give them some development, I thought was a really cool strategy in building up this sort of universe and within the context of the show. And the Season 1 finale just brought it all home for me. The last person on the tape, I'm not going to give it away, but it was really a twist I did not expect coming. It was really, really well executed. And of course, scene where you see what Hannah does to herself. The infamous bathtub scene, I'll just leave it at that, was really well acted and had some really, really like emotional tinge to it, of course. Really, really well done, in my opinion, there. So, in my opinion, the season 1 finale, Tape 7, Side A, is my favorite of 13 Reasons. Matt, we'll trade it over to you. What do you like of 13 Reasons?
Yeah, so the first season is literally one of the best TV seasons I've ever watched. Like, even though I'm not even that big of a drama guy, I'm more cartoons, obviously. I freaking love that first season. It's so good. And there are so many great episodes. Like, literally, you could pick any episode and say it's the best one. But I would have to go with Tape 6, I think, Side A, Clay's Tape. That is, like, undoubtedly the best episode of the whole series. When Clay finally sees, what it's all about, when he gets kind of the treatment of having to listen to his own tape, it's just so sad, but it's kind of, just kind of interesting. There's a word I was trying to, I don't know, whatever. It's just a really interesting concept, obviously, and, it's just the one that really connects the most, I think, of all the episodes. The pieces finally come together, and it just all works out very well.
Yeah, I love the banter between him and Tony in that episode. Like,
Yeah,
any scene with him and
that
Tony
one too.
are great. I love Tony as a character, so yeah, that one definitely hit for me as well. All right, and Mike, why don't you round us out here? What's your favorite episode?
All right, so another one where we have all different episodes. For me, I could have honestly picked any episode from episode 9 all the way to the finale, episode 13. I think those are like top tier, like some of the best episodes. But for me, I'm going to go with Tape 6, Side B. So that's Bryce. And I just think that, the fight scene in that episode is insane. Of course, Clay trying to get him more information. Then that row, I think, was the climax. That was kind of like the last, like, I feel like everything else revolved around
that moment in the show. Yeah, for sure.
And it's really sad what you see happen in that episode, but this is the point where you understand why she's at this point, at her breaking point at that point. But it's just so heart wrenching, and so filled with so many just iconic scenes from the show. So for me, I'm gonna go with Tape 6, Side B.
Yeah, when we got to that episode, because I'm watching it with Steph, as you guys know, like before we started, she's like, "Is this the one with the pool scene?" And I'm like, I guess, I don't know. And she's like, "Okay, well, you can watch it, but I'm going in the other room." Yeah, because that one, it's tough to watch, admittedly, but man, it really hits on the head for sure. With that. All right, going into IMDb here. So this is the first time where one of us actually has a favorite episode that also matches with the IMDb top-rated score there, 9.2 out of 10. And you guys know what it is? Mike?
I have a guess. I think it's the one you picked, the Mr. Porter's tape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Mike, you agree?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Tape 7, Side A there. So, yeah, the season 1 finale is the highest rated of the entire show. And I already gave my thoughts on it pretty much, so I'll let you guys speak on it if you guys want to comment on that episode at all.
So yeah, it's just, a great finale. Of course, you see everything that happens with Hannah's story. And then, of course, you even find out, too, with Justin and Bryce, you find out like stuff that happens with them, Jessica, all that, people who are still involved in the story. And it's just a great conclusion. I know it's very sad, though, very, very sad. But it wrapped up the season well. It didn't end on a really bad note, so that's always a positive. And yeah, just will be remembered as one of the best season finales for sure.
Matt, what
Indeed.
about you?
Yeah, I was going to say definitely one of the best season finales because like Michael said, those last like 3-4 episodes are just so good, and they all just come together perfectly. And that's why we all picked something from the last like 3 episodes of the first season, because they're all just so iconic. And yeah, the episode is just great. It all finally comes together. It all it just ends very well. And the way it ends, like the show honestly just could have ended right there, honestly. And we wouldn't need to have 3 more seasons of it, but whatever.
Yep. That classic foursome just driving in the
seasons,
Mustang out.
Kind of shaky.
Yeah.
Season 1, though, so great.
Yeah. Definitely. All right. So that was us tackling 13 Reasons Why there. Like Mike said, another one where we have all kind of differing opinions on, which is cool one to discuss, I think. So our next show here, we're going to do another sitcom now. And this one I'm going to let Mike lead off because Mike has recently made some videos on this topic. And we have been talking about it at work, actually. Classic Michael Schur show called Parks and Recreation, of course, one of the fan favorites of his filmography there. So, Mike, why don't you lead it off here if you want to talk about some of the videos that you've made on it recently, and then, of course, give us your favorite episode there.
Yeah, so I've recently been making a lot of Parks and Rec videos because recently I've been watching just a ton of clips of it. It's like always on my recommended on YouTube now from the Parks and Recreation account. Just so many great scenes. I love rewatching it. Ron Swanson, shout out Ron Swanson, one of the best characters
Goated.
ever on TV. So yeah, I made a Parks and Rec characters tier list. It's been mentioned in times when I did my top 10 comedy TV episodes and my TV finales, my top TV finales. Both Parks and Rec got a mention in there with either an episode or the finale. I just really think it is so great. And when diving in here to my favorite episode, it is The Fight, a really iconic episode. This is just so great. So basically the plot is Anne and Leslie have been talking, and Leslie really wants Anne to work for the Parks Department, but she's kind of on the fence about it. And Tom is opening up his new creation of snake juice at the bar. And,
Tom is another goated character, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. And they all go, and basically Anne and Leslie are like fighting the entire time, and kind of trying to one up each other with like getting different guys at the bar, and you see all the interactions too with April and Andy are really great in this episode too. Burt Macklin makes an appearance as Andy's alter ego. And we find out with Donna talking to Chris about how the snake juice is like 70% alcohol. So it's like they get totally wasted. And they have this great scene where they all talk into the camera and give their thoughts. And one of the most iconic scenes is when Ron starts dancing. Absolutely love that scene. And it's so funny, too, at the end where they all get in the car. And Donna's like, you better not, if one of you even thinks about dry heaving, you all were walking home. They have Jerry like strapped to the roof of the car. It's like so funny. The episode is so great. I love that episode.
Nice. All right, Matt, why don't we bounce to you? Favorite Parks and Rec episode?
Yeah, for me, I was going to say the finale because I couldn't really think of anything, but I found a better one. I just quickly pulled up the list of all the episodes, and I found one that I like way better. And just, I guess, because it's been a while since I've watched this show, I'm going to go with this one. Season 5's Ben's Parents.
Ooh, okay.
That's probably one of my favorite scenes. Probably the funniest scene in the whole show is the plot of the episode basically is Ben and Leslie have their parents meet basically, and then Ben's parents are divorced, so they're like fighting the whole time. And his dad, played by Jonathan Banks, also known as Mike from Breaking Bad. That's what makes the episode really special now. He has a girlfriend that he brings along with him. And then basically Leslie makes this like quilt with like all these like different like squares or something, and to represent everyone as like this big family or something. I don't know. And then basically the girlfriend doesn't have a square on there, and she gets really pissed off. And then basically some about like Ben's mom says to her, like, why don't you have a drink, because like you're so like pissed off right now. And then she says, like, I can't because I'm pregnant. And it's just, I don't know.
It just goes into total chaos.
Yeah, it's so funny. And it's just the episode. I don't remember anything else about it. I just remember that one scene. But that one scene is just so damn funny. So,
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, Ben's parents for me.
I'm just over here giggling at your guys' descriptions of these episodes because, like, you just mention anything Parks and Rec and you just get a laugh from somebody. All right, so for me, I have a bit of a controversial take on my favorite episode here. More so for kind of nostalgic purposes and just kind of what the episode represented at the time of its release here. I don't even know if it has like an official name, honestly, because it was done after the series had ended, actually about 5 years after it ended. I'm going with the coronavirus reunion or the special reunion episode, whatever you want to refer to it as my favorite here. And like I said, I think this one is just really cool that they were able to bring all the actors back and reprise their roles as the iconic characters from Pawnee, of course. They do a Zoom call, very similar to what we have going on here, just kind of updating everyone on what's been going on and stuff. And Leslie, of course, at the helm of it, is trying to get everything structured and organized, and it kind of just divulges into chaos, as most Parks and Rec episodes do. But what really stood out to me with this one is comparing it to a lot of the other sort of reunions that a lot of other sitcoms did during the pandemic, and how much more special this one is in comparison. When you look at ones like the Fresh Prince reunion, the Friends reunion, stuff like that, those are fine, and those had some really great moments in and of themselves. But the Parks and Rec one, the fact that they were able to reprise their roles and bring these characters back, I thought was really special. And definitely compared to the abysmal 30 Rock reunion that everyone just absolutely hated. Some places just flat out refused to play it, just completely banned it because it was so awful. But the Parks and Rec one was obviously not like that. So that is going to be my pick here, the coronavirus special that they did just last year. As for IMDb here, another one with 2 episodes with the same score, 9.6. One of them was mentioned earlier when Mike was speaking, the finale, of course, One Last Ride. But the other one here, do you guys have a guess of what it could be?
Well, I was going to say The Fight, but I guess it maybe isn't.
Not The Fight.
I don't know.
But that is a great one. Mike, what about you?
For me, actually, this is one. I actually thought it was only the finale because this was one I actually did not look up beforehand, like the IMDb scores. So I'm gonna guess it's Ben and Leslie, the wedding.
Oh, that is another great guess, but incorrect as well. And that was actually, side note, one of the potential picks I had because I love the wedding episode there. But you're on the right track, though. It's actually Leslie and Ron is the episode from the final season as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if Mike or Matt, you guys want to speak on that first? Yeah, go ahead, man.
It's so great. Leslie and Ron, I believe this is the episode where they're locked in the room together.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting for a long time. And basically Leslie's just trying to get Ron to talk to her. And they kind of talk it out, and it's just so great. There's a lot of funny scenes in that episode, especially like when Leslie's just trying to annoy Ron. Ron makes a bet that Leslie can't get him to talk for any amount of money over any course of time from here to for infinity. And
another great Ron Swanson quote.
He brings him to Edge with Jerry's song. Plays the song that Jerry had. I think it was one of the festivals, and Ron just couldn't take it anymore, so he had to turn it off. It's just a great episode. I love them finally getting back together as friends.
For sure. Matt, what about you? Thoughts on this one?
For me, what I really like about it is that it kind of doesn't parody, but it's very similar to this episode of Family Guy called Brian and Stewie, which I know a lot of people don't like that one, and I understand why, but I absolutely love it. It's the one where they get trapped in a bank vault and they just like argue and make up and then get drunk and then just act stupid. But Leslie and Ron is kind of similar to that, where they're locked in the office for however long and they have to talk and they don't really want to. I don't know. It's just kind of similar themes and everything. So that's what's really good about it.
Yeah, for me, when I was doing all the IMDb research for this podcast and kind of looking over, I was surprised too with Mike. I thought that the finale was the highest rated one, so this was a bit of a pleasant surprise in that regard. And I went back and rewatched it because it had been a while since I'd seen this one, and yeah, I just busted out laughing to pretty much all the gags with Leslie trying to annoy Ron with "we didn't start the fire" and all that good stuff. One of the most memorable parts of the episode. But I just love the chemistry between these two. Like, we talked about Ron Swanson, of course, but Leslie, another S-tier character, in my opinion. Just Amy Poehler just steals the show. Just what a great lead for the whole series. And the banter between these two in this episode really shines through. Just really, really well executed on all those accounts there. So, yeah, that's Parks and Rec for us there. All right, with this next one here, we're taking it back old school. We're going back to our childhoods for this one. One of the most iconic, classic Nickelodeon cartoons out there. Of course, if you grew up in the 2000s like the three of us did, then you know this show through all of its fantastic moments and episodes, especially in its early seasons. Of course, I'm talking about SpongeBob here. So with this one, Matt, since you are our cartoon expert here, favorite episode of SpongeBob? Well over 250 to pick from at this point. So tough to narrow down, but what did you have for us?
Yeah. For me, I've always had this statement to say that there really is no best episode of SpongeBob, but I know a lot of people are going to say Band Geeks, and I know Band Geeks is a classic, but for me, it's just not my favorite, and I don't think should be the ultimate best episode because, I don't know. But for me, I really like season 5 the most. And a long time ago, I did a project where I did my top 40 favorite episodes of SpongeBob. And I said number 1 was the episode Spy Buddies.
Ooh.
That one's really good. Where basically SpongeBob and Patrick, or basically they have to become spies and they have to start spying on Plankton because Mr. Krabs is getting suspicious that he's going to do something bad. So they have to start spying on him. And then basically at the end of the episode, after like everything doesn't work, basically it's revealed that Mr. Krabs and Plankton switched places where they have to, Mr. Krabs was in Plankton's body the whole time and Plankton vice versa. And then basically Mr. Krabs had to steal the formula to prove that it's not so hard to do it, and he does successfully, and then Plankton fails like he always does. And the episode is just really interesting. It's action-packed, it's funny as hell, and it's probably my favorite episode.
Yeah. Do you remember that one, Mike? Because when Matt was describing it, I vaguely remember that. Yeah. So, Mike, would you like to go next here? Favorite SpongeBob for you?
Yeah, so mine is actually Band Geeks. I've actually mentioned that. I love that episode so much. It is an instrument. And of course, the great end scene with them playing at the Bubble Bowl is really, really good. I just love that. Of course, I think just them, the whole band makes the whole episode. I mean, you really feel good for Squidward. Squidward finally gets, like, in every single other episode of SpongeBob, it seems like Squidward is always, like, down or, like, he always gets screwed. And this is the one episode at the very end where Squidward shines high with that performance that makes William faint.
Yes, bro. He needs that damn gurney getting out of the bubble hole.
And they actually played this that song at the Super Bowl, like when Steven Hillenburg passed away. So that was very good to see. Yeah, I love Band Geeks though. My favorite episode for sure.
All right, sounds good. All right, so for me, I'm in Mike's camp for sure, where I think the earlier seasons are far and away the best that SpongeBob was able to produce there. And I'm going with one of the famous Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy episodes, as there were several of those. But my favorite in particular was episode 5 that they did. And this is the one where Barnacle Boy goes to the dark side, right? Meets up with Man Ray and the Dirty
Yeah.
Bubble, and then Mermaid Man enlists the help of Sandy, SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick to kind of fill the role of all the other superheroes that were big back in the day when they all fought crime together. And when they eventually meet up for the epic battle between the dark side and the good side, things just go completely haywire. All of the good guys, they end up kind of overestimating some of their powers, like Squidward with the volcano, and he just like blasts himself away, and Sandy's invisible and she gets hit by a car. It's just all chaos in that respect. There's just all sorts of stuff. But this is another one, just like the early episodes, that gave us some of the most memorable quotes and memes from SpongeBob. The classic, "You want to see me run to that rock? You want to see me do it again?" I mean, come on, you can't beat stuff like that. And like I said, the Mermaid Man and Barnacle episodes were always some of my favorites growing up, but this one in particular was always the standout to me. So that's my pick here. Going into IMDb, we pretty much already covered it, but Band Geeks is in fact the episode. They're 9.8 out of 10, only a couple points away from getting the perfect 10 out of 10 score. Matt, do you want to speak on this? Mike already did, so you and me can give our comments on this.
Sure. Yeah. The episode is pretty great. I would say it's probably in the top 10, even though I was kind of dissing it earlier, but it definitely is up there morally, obviously. It is really sweet, obviously, and the end song, Sweet Victory, is amazing. So I can definitely respect it, but I still don't think it's number one.
So you disagree with IMDb on this one?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, for me, I do kind of agree with Matt in some ways. I don't think it should be the highest rated, but I love this one too. Of course, the classic is mayonnaise an instrument, as Mike was pointing out earlier there. And I think this is the episode also with that infamous aerial shot where you see Peach's big ass head when they're marching through Bikini Bottom, I'm pretty sure. And that's, of course, another meme that SpongeBob would eventually have later on. But yeah, I mean, Band Geeks is just one of those things where it's just like everyone's talked how great it is. What new stuff can you say about it? It's just been covered a million times. So I think we'll wrap it up with that. All right. So for this next one here, I'll give you guys the option if you want to go first, because I'm not sure how much you guys are going to speak on this show, but we're going to do another drama here. Of course, awesome and iconic Law and Order here. So if you guys have episodes, feel free to, but I'm not sure. I'll give you guys the chance here. So Mike, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so for me, I was looking back and trying to remember some of the episodes that I saw, because haven't seen Law and Order a lot recently. And one episode that I knew was like really highly rated, that I really remember really well, was I believe the episode is called Scavenger. They are looking for this serial killer, and he's very reminiscent of an actual serial killer, the BTK killer. So I always thought that was a very interesting episode, trying to, find out who that is and tracking him down.
For sure. All right. Matt, what do you have? Do you have a favorite episode?
For me, I don't really have a favorite episode. I haven't really seen the show enough, so I can't really speak on this one.
All right, so you're going to pass. All right, so for me, I'll go a little more in depth with my favorite because, of course, of the three of us, I'm probably the biggest fan of Law & Order here, the entire franchise. And for me, I've mentioned before in some of my previous videos that I really like Ed Green as one of the main detectives, Jesse L. Martin, of course, the actor playing him. And he was on the show for a long time. He was, I think, the longest running of all the main detectives of the show. And he had a bunch of different partners over the years. And one of the most underrated, in my opinion, was later in the series, or season 17, in fact, was one of his last seasons. And the partner that he has is Nina Cassidy, who was only on it for a single season. But I think it's one of the best in the entire show. And my favorite episode comes from that season. It's called Remains of the Day here. And this one is based off a real life event, as a lot of the classic Law and Order episodes are, the rip from the headlines sort of marketing that they would do for these episodes. And in this one, what happens is there is a young man by the name of Michael Brown who is in the hospital and unexpectedly dies from ovarian cancer, of all things, which is like so strange because obviously he's a man and that's quite suspicious. And what happens is they lead this investigation. Turns out that the one of his legs he got surgery for actually came from a donor who had ovarian cancer. And through the process of getting this organ and transitioning it to his surgery and everything, there was a mistake somehow, and he ended up getting cancer from that surgery. And what the detectives end up finding is there's this kind of sketchy funeral home that donates these parts to local hospitals that don't really have the resources, don't really have the income to have the good organ donors, and will kind of go in this kind of sloppy and kind of cheap way to get these parts so that these people can survive. But they often don't do a good job of cleaning them. And if someone's positive with something like cancer, for instance, then it can kind of flow in the bloodstream and it can cause real problems. And the crux of this episode is, of course, when they go to court and try this doctor who's performed all these surgeries, and they end up finding him not guilty, which is one of the few episodes where they do that. And the defense is really strong in this episode. They're saying that he wouldn't have the opportunity to help all these people who are in lower income communities and don't really have the resources to go to the nice hospitals in the city. So he can do these sketchy things, but it helps these people in the long run. And I always appreciated that they weren't afraid to say, like, some of these people that they've tried, are doing it for the good, even if they have to go out of their way sometimes to help these people. And that's one of the few kind of famous examples in the Law and Order series where they find him not guilty in that. But I just love the chemistry of all the characters in this episode. Like I said, the two main detectives are two of my favorites here. So that, in my opinion, is my favorite here. Going into the IMDb episode here, if you guys know this, you guys can comment on it. It's called Aftershock. It's from season 6. It has a 9.1 out of 10. Yeah, probably not.
I don't know that one.
No, it's the season 6 finale of Law and Order, so it's pretty famous in that respect. It ties the season nicely together. So I actually did not know of this episode. This was the first time that I had watched it in preparation for this. And I will say I liked it, but it's definitely not your traditional Law and Order episode. It doesn't have a case, it doesn't have a crime, it doesn't have the courtroom scenes, it doesn't have the investigation. Nothing of that happens in this episode. It's more of a character development type episode early in the series. And the basic plot is, at the very beginning of the episode, we see all the main sort of investigators, detectives, the ADAs, go to a execution in the New York facilities, and they see a live execution of this serial murderer and serial rapist who did these awful things to tons and tons of women, and gets what he deserves, essentially. And the rest of the episode is them kind of coping with the fact that the death penalty is a thing, and all of these, horrible, horrible crimes that this person did. They're obviously justified in killing him, but the act that we do that so commonly in this country, and that's what it kind of commentates on. Of course, Law and Order would always go into those more political discussions here. And like I said, it's a very untraditional, unorthodox episode because it doesn't have the traditional Law and Order formula to it, but in lieu of that, it has a very deep sort of emotional connection with all these detectives, and you kind of see how they all individually cope with it. Some of them go back to drinking. Some of them gamble away because they want to just escape it. Some people are, satisfied that this terrible person is now dead. You just kind of see all the different reactions to it. So I thought that was very interesting. So I do like it, but like I said, very, very untraditional for Law and Order there. All right, transitioning back to a show that I know all three of us enjoy very well. One of my all-time favorite sitcoms here. My second favorite after, of course, How I Met Your Mother here, and one that I was able to introduce of you guys to here in the form of Modern Family here, classic mockumentary from 2009 here. And since this is one of my all-time favorites, I'll go first on this one. My favorite episode of the show is another finale, believe it or not, from season 4, and this one is called Goodnight Gracie. This has always been my favorite episode of Modern Family. It was a tough one to pick. I rewatched quite a bit in order to narrow it down, but this is my all-time favorite here. And the basic plot of this one is the entire family is in Florida for the funeral of Phil's mom here that unfortunately passes in this episode. And they're basically down there for the service, but they, all the family kind of does different things in preparation for it. Of course, Phil is coping with the loss of his mom, and Claire is kind of helping him through it. Before she passes, she leaves gifts for all the kids. So Haley and Luke and Alex get all these kind of gifts from their grandma, which is really cool to see. I love the storyline about Cam playing Mahjong with the ladies at the resort, and him kind of getting into it with these old ladies, I think is really funny. Jay finding his the first time that he did that down in Florida, and he finds this woman that he did that with, so that's pretty funny as well. There's just a lot of different things that happen in this episode, and then it concludes, of course, with the service and the letter that Alex was left from her grandma, and she reads it in the final scene there. So very touching episode as well there. But this one just has a great mix of emotion and comedy to it, which is, of course, what Modern Family did also well throughout its 11 seasons. And Ty Burrell as Phil just steals the show here. So, all right, with that, Matt, why don't you go next here? Favorite for Modern Family?
For me, I think Michael might agree with this one. I'm going to go with Lost Connection, or Connection Lost, rather. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know the plot of this episode, basically Claire is at an airport getting off of a business trip or something, and the whole episode takes place over like what we're doing over like FaceTime, Skype, something. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just a really interesting episode. They find out stuff about Haley, and like they find out other stuff that seems pretty important. So yeah, that's what I can say about it.
All right, Mike, what about you?
So for me, this one was actually really tough because there's a lot of episodes I really like. Some episodes that I want to mention, just giving names, Three Turkeys, another great episode. Of course, Connection Lost, one of my favorites. American Skyper and Hawaii were some of my favorites that couldn't make it. But my favorite, I've actually mentioned it in one of my videos, the Treehouse episode. I absolutely love this episode. It deals with, of course, Phil's trying to rebuild this treehouse, and of course, the neighbor Kevin Hart makes his appearance, and it's so great. I love the idea too of Cam is trying to pick up a woman at a bar, and like him and Mitch are having this bet of whether Cam can pick up this woman. And it's so funny to see his interactions with her. And then I love the scene when Jay is trying to impress Gloria going out salsa dancing, and Manny tries to teach him how to salsa dance, and the way that Jay tries to salsa, it's so funny. Just makes me laugh all the time, especially that salsa scene. It's one of my favorites. It's probably one of like my favorite scene in the entire show. So yeah, that is a great episode.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say Leslie Mann is the woman that. Yeah. So another celebrity cameo there alongside Kevin Hart there. Yeah, great episode, definitely. All right, so for the IMDb pick, 9.5 out of 10 here, another high-rated one. Matt actually mentioned it, so we have another match here for the IMDb with Connection Lost. So, Mike, if you want to speak on this one first, you mentioned it briefly as well.
Yeah, this is probably in my top 5 for the series. I absolutely love this episode. I like the concept of it, too. It's like an episode. It's not like your average episode. It takes place over like FaceTime, Skype, and they're all like wondering like where Haley's like what's happening with Haley, because there's definitely some scares in that situation. And they eventually find out, and it's like nothing. It's just a great episode to see, and I love Phil too. How he's just like on the couch, just like chilling, like he doesn't want no part of this. Claire's like really worried for him.
Yeah.
Nick go now.
For sure. I love this one too. I of course had to rewatch this one as soon as I found out it was the top IMDb, and I just love Julie Bowen as Claire in this episode. I think she really steals the show here. Just kind of all the emotions that she goes through with what's going on with Haley. She's frustrated, then kind of upset, angry, then relieved at the end, of course, when they find out what the big secret is. But yeah, all the characters do a great job here. One of my favorite lines in the entire episode is when they find out that she bought this book on being pregnant, which is a clue for what's kind of going on. And just Claire absolutely freaks out at that. She's like, and most suspiciously of all, she bought a book. And she's like absolutely just frustrated as hell. She's just like going crazy with it. But yeah, I agree that this is definitely deserving of IMDb's top rated for sure. All right, another cartoon here we have. So we've seen an adult cartoon, and then we've seen a childhood cartoon, of course, with SpongeBob there. And for this one, somewhere in between, more so for teens here, I'm going to let Matt kick this one off. Of course, one of Cartoon Network's all-time best. So, of course, for regular show here, our next show, we're going to discuss, Matt, your favorite episode and why.
Yeah, for me, regular show is just so iconic growing up, and the first time I ever watched it, the first episode I ever saw was Do Me a Solid, and that is hands down my favorite episode. I've watched it so many times. It's just the funniest thing ever. I gave a full description of it in my top 10 favorite cartoons of all time video, so if you want to check that out. But to wrap it up quickly, basically in the episode, Mordecai and Rigby keep doing each other solids, so they keep doing favors for each other, basically, if you don't know what that means. And basically, they go to the coffee shop and they get a date, kind of like a get together with Margaret and Eileen, basically. And then throughout the night, Rigby wants Mordecai to do 10 solids, basically, and he keeps doing them to like ruin his day with Margaret, basically. So he asks him to do whatever, and it like fucks everything up. And then at the end, he asks him to do something that's really gross, and then they don't show what it is, but Rigby like films it. Yeah, there's like some suspicion on Reddit and stuff and on the wiki and everything, but he does something really embarrassing and like really humiliating in front of everyone. And then basically Rigby like records it and watches it over and over again. And the episode is just so great. It's definitely the funniest episode, and yeah, that scene with the 10th solid is just crazy as hell.
Yeah, I love Muscle Man in that one too. With the
for sure. Yeah.
That's probably my favorite part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
Yeah,
that part's awesome.
Yeah, Muscle Man, top tier character for sure for regular shows.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Mike, why don't you go next here? Favorite and why?
So for me, this was like such a tough decision. I was looking at like all the episodes, and I'm like, man, what would be like? I was just thinking like, man, what is my favorite episode of regular show? And for me, it's gonna be kind of the opposite. Matt really likes Do Me a Solid because it's really funny. For me, I really like the episode Exit 9B for the action. That is a really great episode. It is the season 4 premiere. So basically, this is the episode where you meet Thomas as well. And basically in this episode, everyone except for Mordecai and Rigby's minds are like erased for like the park. So they're trying to like demolish the park pretty much. And they pretty much have to go and find everyone and try to regenerate their memories to make them understand what's going on in the situation. And then at the very end, they have this huge, massive fight, and it includes all of the characters from the previous There's like Garrett Bobby Ferguson, like Death. Like there's a whole bunch of iconic characters in that scene, and the fight scene is just so epic, man. It's just so great.
Yeah.
I think for me, it might be like my favorite season premiere of all time. Like that episode.
High praise for sure. All right, and for me, this is kind of similar to How I Met Your Mother, where I don't think this is like objectively the best episode as far as like story goes, but I just find this one to be so much fun. And when this episode aired, it's actually another food episode, kind of coincidentally like How I Met Your Mother there. But when this one aired, eating challenges were like a big thing just in pop culture with other shows like Man vs. Food and YouTubers doing food challenges, and this one kind of parodies that sort of culture there. And of course, I'm talking about Eggcellent here, one of the other early episodes from the show. I love this one so much. This is just such a great one to see kind of the friendship, the bond between Rigby and Mordecai. Sometimes they can be a little bit, off on the, not always on the same page, but in this one, Mordecai stands for his friend there. And what happens is they're watching TV one day. They're slacking off, of course, while watching TV, as they always do. And they see this commercial for this local breakfast place that's doing this, what they call the Eggcellent Challenge, which is this huge omelet and biscuits and fruit and everything. And if you can eat it in an hour, you get the meal for free, as well as this really cool hat, this trucker hat that Rigby is just absolutely obsessed with. He wants this hat like nothing else. And so they go down to the restaurant, and Rigby attempts it, but we find out really quick that he's allergic to eggs, so he can't eat the omelet. So when he's in the hospital, it's a really serious allergic reaction, and he ends up in a coma. And the rest of the episode is Mordecai just standing for his friend, training, so that he can win this challenge and get this hat. And he eventually does at the end with the help of Benson and Skips and Muscle Man and all the other guys just, rooting for him, and gives it to Rigby. And that's what wakes him up out of the coma, is the hat. So, but I just love this one. Like I said, that culture of just like the competitive eating, I just thought that was really cool. Kind of, parody of it and kind of satire of it. And I know this episode was one of J.G. Quintel's favorites to make. He's mentioned that too in interviews, and it took longer in the production, but he was like really adamant about making this because he really believed in it, and I think they nailed it. So, all right. But as for the IMDb episode, another one with a 9.8, so close to that 10 out of 10 mark. And this is one that I believe Mike mentioned in a previous video, actually, so you can take this one. It is the series finale. A regular epic final battle is the official title for it. So, Mike, if you want to comment on this one first.
Yeah, this episode's really great. This is actually a 3-part episode, so it's divided into 3 parts. And like how we mentioned earlier, back to the pilot, this one has the episode with the power, that which is the pilot episode for regular show. They go back and try and fix stuff, and the final battle is just so epic. Is just such a fitting title. Pops versus anti-Pops, decide the fate of the universe on the line, and it's so great. And it's so sad too with the events that happen, but so satisfying too. I love the scene at the end, the final scene, where it's 25 years later and they're back at the park with their families, and they take the iconic group picture. Matt actually has it in his room. His room. So I love that picture. It's so iconic, and it's just such a heartwarming ending to such a great series.
Definitely. Matt, any comments?
For me, I admittedly have not seen it all the way through, but obviously I have seen the ending scene with the reunion and everything, and that is just fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, rounding this one out, pretty much echoing what Mike said about the episode, kind of the throwback to the power, which is another great episode, of course, of the show, and just all of the just action that goes on in this one is just always fun. That's the one thing about regular show that they were always really good with, is the balance between the humor and the action. consistently as like wild and as crazy as it can get at times, just sort of being grounded with that, back and forth that they had. So yeah, definitely in agreement on this one. All right, we only have two more shows to cover here, one more sitcom and one more drama, and we're going to start it with the sitcom here. We're going back again with this one, another nostalgic hit for all three of us here. Similar to SpongeBob, one of my personal favorite Nickelodeon shows, one of Dan Schneider's best shows, of course, iCarly here. The original from 2007, because obviously not a lot of people have seen the reunion yet, or the reboot rather. So only going to discuss that one. And Matt, you have previously stated that this was your favorite Dan Schneider. So why don't you go first here? Favorite of iCarly.
Well, give me a sec because I gotta figure out my favorite episode. Real quick.
All right, so then Mike, why don't you go first here?
Yeah, so for me, I was looking back because this is another great series. It's probably my second favorite of the Dan Schneider shows, behind Drake and Josh. But iCarly was just so iconic. Those first like 2 or 3 seasons were like so great. I've seen those episodes multiple times. And for me, when I was looking through, my favorite episode was I, Psycho. That is just such a great episode. There's this chick named Nora, and basically she's like pretty much insane and crazy, and she brings the iCarly crew, so Carly, Sam, and Freddie, into her house and basically keeps them captive in her basement. And basically like Gibby is like trying to find out where they are, and Spencer is too, and Gibby comes to the rescue, and him and Nora have this huge fight that Gibby saves the day for them, and it's just so great to see Gibby get some time to shine. Another one of the episodes, I'm not going to go in depth on it, but another one that was really close that I was going to pick was I Want a World Record from season 1. That is such a great episode too. I loved watching that because when we were all kids, we all wanted to get a world record in something. We used to always read.
Definitely.
So yeah, that is just a great episode too. But for me, I, Psycho, so great.
All right, Matt, do you have one?
Yeah, I got one. So looking at the list right now of all the episodes pulled up, hands down the best one is I Quit iCarly, 2-part episode. I think we're all gonna pick 2-parters or maybe, but this is definitely one of the best 2-part episode of all time. Basically, they want to basically Sam and Carly, they want to have these 2 guys that do these funny internet videos on their show, and basically they get together and they want to do a video to win this like a awards contest, or this like video contest. And then basically the 2 guys they get in a fight, and then they don't want to do it after that. And then basically Sam meets with one of them and Carly meets with one of them. And then after that, they talk, and then Sam and Carly have a fight. And then basically at the end, they all come back together, and they all like kind of make up after some scary shit happens. So
yeah, when they're
and it's just
dangling for their lives,
yeah.
like
yeah, that part. And then at the end, they do a video that's really interesting. The fake horror trailer, that like fake movie trailer, and the episode is just amazing. It's so heartwarming. It's so emotional at times, but it's also really funny. So yeah, that's definitely my pick for this one.
All right. And to Matt's comment about it, like us picking the 2-parters or the kind of special episodes, the big hyped up ones, I'm going to continue that trend. And if you've seen my top 10 favorite and least favorite TV couples video, then you might have an idea where I'm going with this. But I really like Freddie and Carly together as a couple. I always thought it was executed very well. And as a result, my favorite episode of the show is I Saved Your Life here. I just remember having just such a fun time watching that when it debuted, along with the other 11 million people that watched it on its first night, the highest rated in terms of viewership there. But yeah, I was obviously a big fan of iCarly, and when me and Matt were growing up, we didn't have cable, so went over to my grandma's house the night that this one aired, and just all the hype and the previews for it, just really, you just really had to be there, to experience it. And in this episode, this is the first time where we kind of get some development into the relationship, at least romantically, of Carly and Freddie here. Freddie ends up saving Carly's life, as the title would imply, from being hit by a taco truck, and he kind of dives in the way of her and gets hit himself. So he kind of, sacrifices himself, if you will, to rescue Carly in that regard. And she is obviously very fond of that. And the infamous scene where they're in Freddie's bedroom together and they confess their feelings to one another and they have their first kiss is just one of the most iconic in the entire show. And it just really the whole sort of obviously the episode doing so much for the characters, but in addition to that, just having such a fun time watching this the night that it aired, really, really memorable for me personally. And as a result, my favorite episode of iCarly there. With that in mind, the IMDb highest rated one, this is a 9.2, and very similarly to regular show, it is actually the series finale here, I Goodbye, is the top rated episode. So, Mike, since you started this, do you want to comment on this one first?
Yeah, this is a very, very, very great finale. I actually, along with you, what you said, I saved your life. I actually remember watching this live. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Nice.
such a heart wrenching episode again. Of course, Carly, is going back with her dad, who was in the military, and basically her saying goodbye to Sam, Freddie, Gibby, Spencer. It's just so sad, but I love the final scene when she's on the plane and she's looking back at the old iCarly moments, and she just feels so satisfied, like she accomplished so much with her career. So I like that a lot.
Definitely. Matt, any thoughts you have on this?
Yeah, it's a great episode. It's an awesome finale. It's emotional, heart wrenching, yada yada yada. You'll already know about it.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, and pretty much same for me, echoing again the sentiments of what Mike said about it. I do think that it's interesting because if you've seen the reboot now, how they kind of transition from this into the first episode is kind of very unique, I think, and definitely worth a watch. But yeah, definitely, Carly obviously having to stop the show because she's going to move back to Italy with her dad is obviously one of the most emotional scenes in the entire series, and really just a very satisfying conclusion to a pretty long-running show for Nickelodeon standards, at least, and for your kids' sitcom, well over 6 seasons. So definitely a solid end to a fantastic show there. All right, gentlemen, we have made it here. We have one more show to talk about. We've saved the big kahuna for the end here, and I think you guys know what it is. And for anyone that doesn't know, Mike, this is your favorite TV show. So, of course, I'm going to let you go first here. Why don't you introduce it as well, give us your favorite episode?
All right, so most people would consider this probably a top 5, top 3, the best show of all time, at least up there in that category. One of the most the iconic decade and century defining shows, and that is going to be Breaking Bad. Of course, I have my poster right there back behind me. And yeah, this series had so many great episodes, and for me, my favorite is going to be the episode with 10 out of 10 Ozymandias. What a amazing
Why are you laughing,
shout out
man?
to Felina and Face Off 2 and 3 for me. They're both a 9.9 out of 10. But Ozymandias, man, the opening scene of that episode is just freaking insane. The action in that scene is just incredible, and it has my favorite line in the entire series is in that scene. And then too, just the heartbreak, the emotion, the acting is just so incredible. The iconic phone call, of course, in that episode, just so great. It's a reason it's a 10 out of 10. It's just so great. I knew going into Breaking Bad this was the highest rated episode. I wanted to see like why it was so good, and when I watched it, I realized that's why it's so good. Just everything you want from a drama, it delivers.
All right, very well said there. Matt, why don't you continue it? Favorite episode and why?
Because Nick here hasn't watched all the way through and hasn't gotten to that episode yet. I won't spoil it, but I just didn't really say it, but that is also my favorite episode, Ozymandias. Mainly just because it's the one where everything finally just comes together. All the loose ends are tied up pretty much, and it's close to the ending, so obviously it's really wraps up the series and really starts up the plot for kind of the last few episodes. So yeah, the episode is just fantastic. Definitely a 10 out of 10 worthy episode. Definitely one of my favorite episodes of all time, and definitely the best episode of this show.
All right, very good. Yeah, so like Matt mentioned here, I'm a little bit more behind with these since in Breaking Bad, at least compared to these gentlemen here. So for me, from what I've seen of this show thus far, only about a season and a half's worth, somewhere in the halfway point of season 2 is where I'm at so far. My favorite episode of Breaking Bad would be Grilled here from season 2. I know this is another fan favorite, especially of the early seasons here. And since we've all seen this one, we can go a little more in depth here. But the plot of this one is Tuco is basically kidnapped Walter and Jesse and taken them to basically this trap house out in the middle of the desert. And he's essentially saying that he's got some of his cousins coming over, and they're going to go with his cousins so they can make the meth that Tuco loves. And they're going to be rich, and, all these guys are going to flourish here. And obviously Walter and Jesse, they don't want to leave town. They don't want to work for this guy because he's kind of psycho. He's already shown some tendencies of that in the previous episodes. And of course, Walter's wife, Skyler, is getting kind of suspicious of where he's going. And since he's disappeared for all this time and he's with Jesse and Tuco, she hires a private investigator as well as Hank, his brother-in-law, of course, going out to look for him. And while all this is going on, Hank is simultaneously looking for Jesse to wrap up this case that's going on with Tuco, and he's looking for Tuco, and he's looking for Walt. So he's just all over the place. His mind is just like spinning all over. And then it concludes with the, of course, very famous scene where Tuco and Hank meet out in the desert, and he finds him next to Jesse's car, so he gets a hint that Jesse's part of this as well. And you kind of get, a little bit more of this fleshed out story of what Hank is thinking. And of course, the shootout between him and Tuco is at the very end one of the best aspects of the episode. I believe also this is the first episode featuring Hector too. So the comic relief of this one, where he's is he Tuco's like cousin or something, or uncle? Okay, yeah. I knew he had some relation, but yeah. So he doesn't really talk though, but he has some really funny moments here. Slapping the burrito off the table, of course, is one of the fan favorite moments there. But yeah, this one just absolutely had me hooked. Absolutely one of my favorites for sure of the series. All right, and for IMDb, you guys pretty much already mentioned it. The 10 out of 10, of course, the only episode there. And I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it as of yet, but I know how obviously impactful it is to the show. So, any other closing thoughts you have on Breaking Bad here before we wrap it up? If you guys want to talk about Grilled, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Grilled is amazing. Grilled is definitely one of the best episodes, and definitely the best of like the first like 2 or 3 seasons, I would say. It's just so funny, and obviously the part with Hector where he throws the burrito off the table, and he's he's like ringing the bell a million times later because he wants food.
Yeah,
it's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Mike, any?
Oh yeah, so Grilled is so great.
Get a chuckle out of that.
There was actually a scene when Tuco throws Jesse through the like through the door pretty much.
Oh yeah.
Aaron Paul actually got a concussion from that scene, actually, which I thought was pretty interesting. I learned about that after I finished the series, like looking up facts about this show, and I just love Hector, bro. And it's like he just ringing that bell, man. And then Tuco, man, you really see him go crazy. When he finds out about Gonzo, and he freaking goes on a rage with his knife, and gives like a pretty emotional speech saying how you can never trust the people that you love when you're in the business. But yeah, it's just such a great episode. It has comedy, it has drama, it's got great action. Just a great episode, and definitely my favorite from season 2 for sure.
Definitely. All right, folks. Well, that concludes our discussion here on these 10 shows and our favorite episodes of them. I want to give a big thanks to Mike and Matt for joining me today. Glad to see you guys were having as much fun with the podcast as I am. Definitely will do this again soon. As for anyone watching here, be sure to comment below some of your favorite episodes from these and any other thoughts you have on our picks here, as well as subscribing. And don't forget, of course, these gentlemen have YouTube channels of their own. Those will be linked in the description. Go over, give their videos a watch. They are putting out fantastic content. So yeah, any closing thoughts you guys have? You guys want to talk about your channels or anything like that? Feel free. So
yeah, look out for my movie project coming out pretty soon.
Definitely. All right, we'll be sure to. Mike?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be putting out some future projects here. And then also, one of my videos is really close to hitting 1K views. It probably will by either the end of today or tomorrow. So I'm going to definitely either make a response video or mention another video. Thank you guys. If any of you are watching Nick's channel, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. I mean, I just started recently, and glad to see that some of my videos are gaining some traction. So
Definitely.
That's always good to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, be on the lookout for Nick and Matt's future videos. It's going to be a good time for sure.
For sure. All right, gentlemen. Well, that concludes it. Thank you guys once again for checking out this latest episode of the podcast here. That's what I got. So be sure to subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.